After more than 2 years off air, The Mandalorian is finally back. Episode 1 of Season 3 is out, and we need to break it down and review it. Does the season opener live up to the hype of the show? How does it set up the rest of the season? And what are the fun Easter eggs that we all missed the first time watching it? Well, we're going to go over all of that. So smash a like on this video and let's begin. Now, first up in this vid, I just want to jump right into my thoughts about the episode, my rating for the episode, because I think a lot of us, especially after 2 years off air and waiting, were wondering, how is this season opener going to live up to the season opener of season 2? How is it going to just live up to the hype of the show? Will this be an episode that just brings us all back into the love of The Mandalorian? Or instead, was this going to maybe be a contentious episode, one that fans were seemingly divided on? And I just got to say, for me, this episode absolutely crushed it. It brings me back into the world, reminds me everything that I love about the show. And it just feels so dang Star Wars to me. Like every single scene in this episode has some crazy thing that happens or something that feels very, very Star Wars. He's got this baptism type scene and this crazy alligator turtle monster thing pops out and is fighting all the Mandalorians. Crazy as heck. We get to Navarro and we've got Grief Cargo with the drip and little droids picking his cloak off the ground. But oh no, there's some pirates at the school, which used to be a bar, and we got a gunfight out in the streets. Mando goes to get off the planet and is encountered by those same pirates and even a crazy warship and some weird looking Davy Jones alien. Even the freaking Purgle scene when they're going through hyperspace, it just all feels so Star Wars and so much of an adventure for me. And I think sometimes we forget just how sort of Buck Rogers Saturday morning serialized cartoons a lot of the different scenes are in all of Star Wars, or at least especially in the George Lucas Star Wars. Like, it's meant to be an adventure, and there's oftentimes just stuff that keeps happening to the characters to keep the adventure fresh and to have the characters have to struggle. And I think this episode does an incredible job of using that as a North Star for how the particular scenes all fit together. And yet it also feels so Mandalorian, giving us a lot of incredible moments with Grogu and Din, a bunch of returning characters. And I will admit that the opening for season 2 is better. Like, I think that episode is goated. It's 52 minutes. It feels like a movie. A ton of stuff is happening. And I have seen a portion of the fan base that's rating this episode around a 6 or a 7. And even though they enjoy this episode, they don't necessarily think it's incredible. But I gotta rate this episode at 8 and maybe even an 8.5. Like, it is strong in my opinion. It goes hard in places that it needs to go hard. It was almost like the perfect episode to bring us back after 2 years and just remind us of all the different elements that we fell in love with watching this show in its first 2 seasons. And so I personally just gotta say hats off to the whole team over there. I think it's a very, very strong episode, an episode that I just wanted to rewatch immediately. Like, man, I really, really liked it. I'm excited. I feel like not only is Mandalorian back, but Star Wars is back in a lot of ways, and I can't wait to see the rest of the season. So let's talk about what the episode actually sets up for the rest of its season, and we will consider some of the rumors and things that we've heard about the show when doing this. So first up, you start with a scene with the armor, and they're sort of doing a baptism for a new foundling. Now, this obviously parallels to when Din Djarin was a foundling, so we're kind of learning a little bit of what it was like for him. But the scene's also important in setting up Pav Vizsla, the armorer, and just a lot of other Mandalorians for this tribe to be aware of Din Djarin, understanding that he has come in and saved at least some of them again. And yet they're all likely aware that he is an apostate and that he will need to go redeem himself if he wants to be considered Mandalorian. Now, speaking of rumors, we are hearing that you're going to get a lot of these Mandalorians all back on Mandalore by the end of this season. And there were even reports that there were going to be younglings or foundlings fighting alongside the adults in some kind of an epic, massive battle towards the end of the season. And so this scene at the beginning here, I think, is setting that up. And I think we'll see this tribe joining up with a lot of the other tribes towards the end of the show. And there's, of course, the scene where Din Djarin is explaining to the armor that he has something from Mandalore and he thinks he can actually go back there and redeem himself. And it reestablishes that she doubts that he'll be able to redeem himself, but she's also acknowledging that, yes, if he does go there and do that redemption ceremony, then he will be Mandalorian once again. Now, I next want to talk about the Purgle scene because it's seemingly just a fun Easter egg, but I think it's super significant for what Star Wars is going to be doing this year. As we know, the Ahsoka show is coming out later this year, and that show is going to be dealing with where Ezra Bridger and Thrawn have been. And this is all because at the end of Star Wars Rebels, Ezra Bridger summons the Purgle to Lothal, and then Thrawn, his ships, and Ezra are all launched into hyperspace, and we don't know where they go from there. Now, according to rumors, this is all going to take them to a place known as the Great Beyond, a portion of the galaxy, or perhaps even something outside of the known Star Wars galaxy that we have never visited before as Star Wars fans. And I kind of get the feeling that just this little scene here of Grogu sort of reaching out of the Force, seeing the Purgle in the hyperspace lane, is a cool way for John and Dave to set up that idea for normies or casual audiences to understand what the Purgle are. Now, we next get a sequence of Mando going to Navarro, and he's going to Navarro to get IG-11, which is interesting. He says he needs a droid he can trust to go do his tasks on Mandalore. He, of course, recognizes that Navarro is flourishing under Greef Karga, and Greef Karga tries to recruit him to being the marshal there because Cara Dune has been recruited into special forces. And of course, in this sequence, we get the pirates coming back. They have history with Greef Karga from when he was a part of the Bounty Hunters Guild. And we get a cool action sequence where they gun down a bunch of pirates and let the leader go, which of course comes back up in this episode, but is likely to continue to plague Navarro as a lingering plot. Interestingly, Din Djarin is taking this IG-11 droid that he kind of reprograms. It has like a crazy thing where its old programming comes back on and it wants to kill Grogu, which I thought was freaking sweet. And they get the race of Babu Frick, and I believe Babu Frick himself, to repair the droid. And I thought this scene was awesome, but it also sets up the fact that IG-11 is not fixable in its current state. And as far as the rumors go, we've heard that IG-11 will be turned into something like a suit that Grogu may well wear, kind of like an Iron Man suit. And so perhaps what's going to happen is they can't fully fix IG-11 and instead can sort of partially fix him into more or less being some kind of a bodysuit for Grogu. Of course, then when Din goes to leave Navarro, he's confronted by those pirates. There's a sick space battle between them, and then Mando does pull up on a massive battleship belonging to the pirate Gorian Shard. Gorian Shard wants Mando's ship to pay for the loss of the ships that he's destroyed, and I suppose this could set up conflicts down the line and even just more of a lingering threat around Navarro itself. And the episode ends with a sequence on Calvala, which is a planet within the Mandalorian system. They pull up on this awesome looking castle, which resembles a lot of the castles that we saw in Star Wars Rebels on Mandalore. And this is a castle where we see Bo-Katan sitting on her throne. And it's in this sequence that we learn that Bo-Katan, upon returning to her people without the Darksaber, lost their support. She no longer even has the following or the army that she had before. Din Djarin questions whether or not she still wants to unify Mandalore, and Bo's kind of over it, depressed that she doesn't have the leadership, that she no longer has the Darksaber, and she's way more down on the possibility of Mandalore actually being revived than she was before. And I think what this scene is really showing us is that Din Djarin himself is likely to be the link between all of these different factions of the Mandalorians coming together. The episode begins with him speaking to the armor, who Bo-Katan considers to be a cult leader. And the armor has already talked crap on Bo too, talking about her tale as a cautionary tale. And both of the leaders, the armor and Bo-Katan, are very pessimistic about the health of Mandalore and the possibility of the Mandalorians all coming together. So overall, I thought the show did a great job of bringing us back into the world of the Mandalorian, showing us a bunch of stuff that we absolutely love about Grogu and Din Djarin together. And the first episode really serves to set up what I think is going to be the A-plot of this season, with the Mandalorians coming together, Din Djarin discovering things about the home planet. And really, it's about all of these people putting aside their differences and potentially uniting under one ruler. It's an 8 out of 10 for me, but a strong 8 out of 10, and I'm super excited to get into next week's episode. But those are my thoughts. I want to know what your thoughts are. Let me know in the comment section below. Smash a like on this video if you enjoyed it, and if you want to watch more, why not check out this video I just did on all the information we have about what the future holds for Kang in the MCU.